Welcome everyone to the first edition of another bad movie here with the Unsavory Heroes, where we cover random movies we find on the internet and review them so that you don't have to. I'm Thadakonda, and today we cover Llamageddon, a film from 2015 or 2018 depending on your source, about an alien llama who crash lands on our little blue planet and wreaks havoc on a fairly tame college party. The movie was directed by Howie Doohan, who co-wrote the story with James Earl Cox III, who plays one of our protagonists, Floyd. Now, it should be noted that, according to a source, this film was made as a student project and that Howie and James are actually pen names of the director and co-writers. So if you look at IMDb, you'll see that these are the only credits to these names. Let's dive right into this one, where our story begins with an animated segment of a planet of alien llamas, readying a fleet to traverse the universe for reasons unknown, but we'll just assume it's to conquer planets. It is here we see both the good and bad of the movie. And no, it's not entirely animated, but it did throw me off on the first viewing. And yes, I sat through this multiple times, once again, so that you don't have to. While I appreciate the animation to show the background of the llama, I have to question why start the movie with this when in the very next scene we show the crash landing of the ship followed by the llama getting out. And can I just point out the fact that I absolutely love that they use a real llama for this movie? They could have gone the cheap route and gone to Party City or something and gotten a llama costume, but instead no. They went out, they got a real llama, and they were able to pull it off pretty well. So I give them a lot of credit for featuring that in this movie. To show a sense of mystery about what we're dealing with, they could have shown something crash landing, then cut to our very next scene with the two people sitting outside of their barn. They could have then cut to the llama, asking where that llama came from and whatnot, then cut to the very next shot, which shows the two people in their bedroom, because with that you might be able to get off a sense of mystery about what came from the crash site. We get an idea of where the majority of this film's budget went in an aerial view of the crash site. An unnamed man with a rather harsh choice of attire comes out and says something about cleaning up the area. But don't worry about this guy because we never see or hear from him again. Despite the choice in wardrobe, the scene illustrates another positive about this movie, and that is voiceovers. I don't know how many people here have seen really bad movies or student-made films, but since you're watching this, I'm guessing you are a fan of them. But you may have noticed in those films, maybe not all of them, but a pretty good chunk, there's a lot of audio issues that stem from being outside and having a windy day, things like that, maybe traffic in the background. But what I really like about what these people did with their movie was, despite it being a student project, they actually took the time and the effort to go back and voice over their recording. That way you didn't have so many factors really messing with audio. So kudos to them. Bravo, bravo. Cut to a cemetery where a cliche Amazing Grace on the bagpipes pierces our ears as we're finally introduced to our two protagonists, that being Mel and Floyd. Mind you, we've hit the 5-minute 40-second mark of the movie and we're just now meeting these two. And for a movie that's only 69 minutes, it's a ballsy move to waste 7% getting to this point. And I have a major question about these so-called grandparents they show in the opening scene. They're supposed to be the grandparents of our two protagonists, but if you look at their age compared to what Mel and Floyd's mom's age is, something really doesn't add up about this. And speaking of the dialogue going to the grandparents' place, can we just mention how it makes absolutely no sense? The grandparents were just murdered in their own home, and the mother is bringing her two children to stay there by themselves in a house they were just murdered in. Why would you do this? This is awful parenting, in my opinion. If she considers the grandparents' house a safe place, I would hate to see her idea of what's dangerous. Mel mentions how the authorities came to the conclusion that it was an escaped zoo animal. How? How did they come to the conclusion? Was there a news report about escaped animals we never heard? How did they explain the lack of signs of forced entry to the house and the bedroom? None of this makes any sense. After an out-of-place transition to the next scene, we're in an odd scenario because here Floyd notices the llama. You'll notice throughout the rest of the movie, we see this llama as a ruthless killer that kills everyone it comes across. So why does it allow Floyd and everyone else in this scene to live? And what is going on with these close-ups? As Scanlan23 pointed out when we had our watch party, these camera angles are supposed to show an altered state of mind by a character, whether by drugs, alcohol, stress, or fear, anxiety, something along those lines, but here it makes absolutely no sense and shows no purpose other than just to have these angles in the movie. Now, I guess we could say Floyd does suffer from anxiety. It does seem that way with what we're given in this scene and maybe a little bit in the car ride, but it's just off-putting. The mom leaves the kids at the safe grandparents' house, prompting Mel to call a bunch of people to come over for a party. And when I say a bunch of people, I'm talking about a minute and a half of nothing but quick cuts of her calling different people to pad the runtime. We also need to remember that she's making all of these calls, because this is definitely going to come into play later on. Back at the crash site from 8 minutes ago, we see what I guess we can call scientists in formal clothes. I guess they were all called in on their day off or something.
I think I'm getting too old for this.
Oh, hell no. You did not just quote Lethal Weapon. I'm going to assume this guy, who we'll just call Shades, had no idea what his lines were and he was reading them out of his binder. Even with that advantage, he still has trouble delivering his lines. Did they only have him for the day and he just did one take on everything? Also, this scene has absolutely no bearing on the rest of the movie except for a post-credit scene. Yeah, there is one of those. All of these characters no longer exist after this scene, so what was the point? For some reason, we get this time-lapse card for 7 seconds and flash forward to 3 people of whom we have no idea their identity sitting in front of us. Why do this? Why not set up establishing shot of people walking into the party being greeted by Mel? That way they at least have a name with her interaction with them. We have some sort of idea of what their identity is. Keep an eye on this guy on the left. His name's Dan. You'll see why in a second. This dialogue between these 3 characters makes no sense with the movie. They're trying to figure out which is the better of the 3 Evil Dead movies, 1, 2, or Army of Darkness, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the movie, any of the themes, any of the plot. Nothing. Now, to have something like this in a movie, you have to have it correlate to something that's happening in the film. Take a movie like Scream, for example, and the party scene with Jamie Kennedy and everyone else. It made sense there because Scream in itself is a parody on horror movies and the tropes they use and the themes and elements, everything. Everything that makes fun of horror movies is actually in Scream, but they use it to such a great effect to where it actually works. In this movie, they're just mentioning classic horror movies just for the hell of it. Doesn't make any sense. Notice anything about Dan here? I initially thought it was an editing error, but it's not. So buckle up because it's going to happen the whole movie.
How are we doing on Operation Get Him Laid?
Yeah, I'm working on it, but that isn't helping.
Now, I may not have been the closest with my siblings growing up, but I find something incredibly disturbing about this plot point. This is immediately followed by another attempt to add on runtime with this senseless dancing to sax music. While these 2 are dancing to music no other people at the party can hear, Floyd's struggling to put cards back onto the can. I'm no doctor, but I think if this kid is clearly awkward in social situations, stresses while handling a few cards, and becomes an emotional wreck over something so trivial, he may have deeper issues to work out other than being a virgin. Just my 2 cents. By the way, the sax music lasts a full minute. Mel texts her friend Stacy to figure out her ETA. I find this both interesting and annoying with how the messaging plays out. The characters are reading the text on the screen, but not paying attention to what they're typing. And this is a weird problem in the movie in that it has these odd, out-of-place shifts in tone. It's supposed to be a horror movie of sorts, but it has these strange, out-of-place moments of trying to be funny.
I'll pack a bowl for you.
You. Stacy pulls up to the llama, and instead of doing the sensible thing of driving around the animal, she gets a llama lasered. Her last text is her screaming, and Mel thinks nothing of it. Nothing important happens for about 7 minutes until these 2 unnamed characters go outside after having a fight about infidelity, in which the guy becomes a man-baby and pouts out of the room with his girlfriend in pursuit. Remember how I say she's right after him. Outside, he offers the llama a joint and gets his hand bitten off. As he tries to get away, the llama punches his heart out of his chest, sending it flying toward the girlfriend, who is now a mile away from the guy after leaving the house right after him. The llama beats her to death in comedic fashion. Floyd continues to embarrass himself while playing a drinking game and pukes on the cards. Everyone's upset by this until Floyd mentions the hot tub out back. We're now introduced to yet another new character. Mind you, we're at about the halfway point. Trent is Mel's boyfriend, who hadn't been hinted at until about a few seconds ago. Trent and Dan have this weird greeting where they try to break each other's hands during a handshake. Again, we have no idea who this guy is or why he and Dan are hostile towards each other. And there's this weird close-up of mouths for some reason. Mel goes off with Trent to the bathroom to get weird, while at the same time Sam takes Floyd to a bedroom where they can get together. We're treated to some more close-up of mouths. When the deed is done, Floyd states he's become a man and his entire character is changed for the remainder of the movie. We finally get to the hot tub where the filmmakers rush to get the final act by killing off just about everyone at the party in one fell swoop as the llama throws a radio into the arms of wannabe Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, then knocks the radio into the water, electrocuting everyone. 2 random girls from the party dip their toes into the water and die. Did they not hear the electrical outlet crackling? Or could they not tell the people in the hot tub were in pain? And I'm not an electrician, but I'm pretty sure a circuit breaker would have been popped shortly after the radio went into the water. By the way, the entire duration of the electrocution lasts about 1 minute and 23 seconds. My biggest gripe about this entire sequence wasn't so much the fact that the llama knew that tossing a radio into a hot tub full of people would kill everyone in there, or the stupidity of the 2 girls, is that there's about 6 to 8 bodies in this hot tub when all is said and done. If you're going to kill so many people at the same time, why even bother having so many in the movie to begin with? They could have drastically cut down the cast and built the characters up so that we cared when they died. Now again, this probably goes back to the fact this was a student-made film, so they probably had to include so many people in it, which is probably the reason why this happened. So if you make a sequel to this movie, make sure that you bring the cast down, that way you can lift their characters up. Dan comes back with a bunch of empty beer cans and discovers the bodies. He walks into the kitchen and breaks the news to Mel and Trent. Floyd and Sam walk in and are updated on the situation. Floyd comes up with the idea to call 911, but suddenly no one has any service. How was it that Mel was able to call all the people at the beginning of the movie, then text her friend just a few minutes ago if there was no service? Again, continuity. The gang goes outside and runs into the llama. 2 more unnamed beer pong players try to run away but get llama lasered. The movie's special effects aren't the best, but I love the over-the-top blood splatter. It's just so ridiculous. Trent gets splooged on by the llama, causing him to transform. Mel uses a landline phone to call her estranged father, and it's here we get the best line of the movie.
You have kids?
Couple.
You're about to have a few.
Trent crawls through the door, which is previously locked by both Dan and Floyd in the previous scene. An unnamed girl who passed out earlier comes to, only to die about 2 seconds after walking outside. The llama chases our main characters around the woods, using recycled shots of llama lasers to blast after them. There's this random dog in these scenes. We've never seen this dog the entire movie, and it's only in these couple of shots. Where did this thing come from? Sam fulfills another horror cliche by tripping and falling over nothing, and for some reason can't get back up. Guess what? Llama laser. Dan's response is epic. Floyd, Dan, and Mel decide to abandon Trent, thinking he's the reason the llama can track them. Mel doesn't put up much of a fight to save him, despite the fact they are in a relationship. Granted, they did have a fight earlier about infidelity as well, but you'd think she still has some sort of affection towards him. We then enter an animated segment showing Trent, I guess, completing his transformation before the llama does inappropriate things to him. The 3 characters reach the crash site, which I guess for some reason the scientists from earlier didn't bother putting security around or move the ship to a secure location. Dan goes inside and grabs what is clearly a baseball bat wrapped in foil, assuming it's a weapon of some sort. After using the
goddamn space stick
to deflect a llama laser, he suddenly forgets he has this ability and allows the llama to laser him anyway. Mel and Floyd run and hide in a barn while Dad arrives shortly after. We are then treated to an excruciatingly long sequence of Dad searching the barn for his kids, while Trent gives birth to some space llama eggs. And by long, I mean 5 minutes of just the Dad walking around and Trent popping out eggs. Dad comes across Trent after he's pushed out his last egg. The Dad does us all a favor by blowing a hole through Trent's head after shamelessly using a classic line from a much better franchise, and then blasts away all the eggs. Dad and Llama have a shootout, which eventually turns into some epic fisticuffs. Dad charges that llama and gets bitten in the neck. Mel and Floyd have what I suppose was a heart-to-heart, but it just ends up with them insulting each other. The 2 are encountered by the llama, but oh look, here's Dad to the rescue and he chops up the llama. As he lies in his children's arms, the Dad confesses that he always liked Mel more. Mel tells him he was his favorite as well. Floyd chimes in and tells his dad that Mom was his favorite. Dad tries to get one more jab in at the ex-wife, but dies. Our 2 protagonists look up to the stars, hoping no more llamas come to Earth. Roll credits. The credits simply blew my mind because in case you missed anything, the entire movie plays off to the side while an epic Llamageddon rap invades our ears. The lyrics of the song pretty much lay out what happened in the movie, but even those aren't correct. The song refers to Mel's boyfriend as Mike, but was called Trent the entire time. And what happened to Cody, the guy with the backwards hat? He just disappears after the hot tub scene and is never seen again. And just when you think the movie is over after the credits, guess again. Remember the old scientist from earlier who said to keep the llama egg from the crash site for further observation? Yep, that's what happened with that. The movie then finally wraps up, but not before about a minute of black screen to hit the sweet 69-minute mark. So that's Llamageddon, ladies and gentlemen, a student film from 2015. Overall, not the worst movie I've ever seen, but a pretty good note to start off here with another bad movie here on the Unsavory Heroes. And if you love the movie so much, there is a sequel in the works, at least according to a January 2019 article from local12.com, in which the producers are going to use a different animal, an alpaca, and they are planning on calling it Alpacalypse. Let us know your thoughts on the movie or review by leaving a comment, and please support the channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. You can also check us out on Twitch, where we stream live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You can stay up to date with all things Unsavory Heroes by checking out our social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time here on another bad movie with the Unsavory Heroes.